Maya Rodriguez had always been invisible at Braytech Digital. At 19, she'd spent countless afternoons in the gleaming Silicon Valley headquarters, waiting for her father Roberto to finish his night shift cleaning the offices. She'd sit in the lobby, laptop balanced on her knees, watching the endless parade of engineers in their designer hoodies and expensive sneakers rush past her like she didn't exist. Roberto Rodriguez had been Braytech's head janitor for 7 years. Every night, he'd push his cart through the maze of glass offices, emptying trash cans filled with discarded code printouts and energy drink cans. Maya would sometimes help him, and during those quiet hours, she'd glimpse the monitors still glowing with complex algorithms and system architectures. What the engineers threw away as failed experiments, Maya would carefully fold and slip into her backpack. At home in their cramped one-bedroom apartment, Maya had built something extraordinary. Using salvaged parts, discarded circuit boards, and pure determination, she'd constructed a workstation that could rival NASA's control center. 3 monitors displayed cascading code, custom-built servers hummed quietly in the corner, and her modified laptop held together with electrical tape and covered in robotics club stickers, could crack encryption protocols that most companies couldn't afford to build. But nobody knew, nobody saw. Maya was just the janitor's daughter. The morning of March 15th started like any other at Braytech. CEO Ethan Bray, 49 and notorious for his steel gray suits and ice-cold firing practices, was preparing for the biggest day in company history. A live federal performance audit with government officials, Fortune 500 executives, and media representatives watching Braytech's security system defend against simulated cyber attacks in real time. "This is our moment," Ethan announced to his executive team that morning. "Every major contract for the next 5 years depends on today's performance." Maya happened to be in the building early, bringing her father his forgotten lunch. She watched from the hallway as dozens of officials in dark suits filed into the main conference room. She'd never seen the building so tense, so electric with anticipation. At exactly 10:47 a.m., everything went wrong. The first alarm was soft, almost gentle. Then the screens started flashing red. Within seconds, every monitor in Braytech's headquarters displayed the same terrifying message: system failure, critical, breach detected. Maya watched in horror as panic spread through the building like wildfire. Engineers ran between workstations, shouting technical jargon she understood better than they realized. The government officials looked confused, then concerned, then angry. Outside, news vans were already pulling up to the curb. In the center of the chaos stood Ethan Bray, frozen like a statue. His multi-million-dollar security system, trusted by the Pentagon and used by half the Fortune 500, had collapsed during the most important demonstration of his career. "Tell me where the breach started." Ethan's voice cut through the noise, trembling with barely controlled panic. "Right now." "Sir, we can't trace it," stammered his lead architect, David Kim. "It bypassed all 3 encryption layers. There's no external IP address. It looks like ... It came from inside." Those words sent a chill through the room. An internal breach meant more than just technical failure. It meant potential espionage, federal investigation, and the complete destruction of Braytech's reputation. Maya pressed herself against the hallway wall, watching the drama unfold. Her analytical mind was already working, processing the fragments of information she could hear. A recursive virus, logic tree corruption, backup protocol exploitation. She'd seen patterns like this before, not in corporate systems, but in the theoretical scenarios she'd studied late at night. "Everyone to the war room, now!" Ethan barked, storming toward the glass conference room with his executives scrambling behind him. As the hallway emptied, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She slipped through the side door into the operations floor, her warm backpack slung over her shoulder. She looked completely out of place among the pristine workstations and panic-stricken engineers, a teenager in cargo pants and a faded high school robotics club hoodie, with grease under her fingernails and dust on her cheek. But Maya had spent 7 years studying this building, this company, this system. She'd reverse-engineered Braytech's proprietary code months ago, just for fun. She'd identified vulnerabilities that million-dollar security teams had missed. And now, watching the monitors cascade with corrupted data, she could see exactly what was happening. The virus wasn't just malicious. It was brilliant. Someone had designed it with intimate knowledge of Braytech's architecture. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd assumed nobody outside the company could think faster than the machine. Maya took a deep breath, pulled out her battle-scarred laptop, and stepped into the light. The invisible girl was about to become impossible to ignore. The operations floor buzzed with desperate energy as Maya approached the nearest workstation. Junior technician Marcus Webb was frantically typing commands, sweat beading on his forehead as error messages flooded his screen. "Excuse me," Maya said quietly, her voice barely audible above the chaos. Marcus looked up, his expression shifting from confusion to irritation. "Kid, you can't be in here. This is a restricted area during. You need to isolate the recursive. String on node 4B before it doubles again," Maya interrupted, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "You have about 45 seconds. Marcus's mouth fell open. "What? Who are you?" "Someone who can see what's happening to your system," Maya replied, already moving closer to his terminal. "That virus isn't just attacking your primary servers. It's feeding on your own backup protocols. Every time your system tries to restore itself, it's actually making the infection stronger." Around them, other engineers had started to notice the strange conversation. A few looked over with curiosity, others with annoyance. Maya could feel their skeptical stares, but she'd experienced worse. Years of being dismissed, overlooked, and underestimated had prepared her for this moment. "Look," Marcus said, glancing nervously at his supervisor. "I don't know who you are, but I can't just let some random person." "Then watch your backup drive," Maya said simply. "In 30 seconds, you'll see the infection spread to your clean recovery systems. After that, you won't just lose your current data, you'll lose everything." Marcus hesitated, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. Something in Maya's tone, the quiet confidence, the technical precision made him pause. He'd been struggling with this system for 20 minutes, making no progress while watching his company's reputation crumble in real time. "What did you say your name was?" "Maya Rodriguez," she said, dropping her backpack and pulling out her modified laptop. "And I'm here to fix this." The words carried across the operations floor like a ripple. Engineers turned, whispered, pointed. Some laughed. The idea of a teenager in a hoodie solving their crisis seemed absurd. But others, the ones who'd been fighting the virus longest, started to gather around. Maya connected her custom-built USB device to Marcus's terminal, her fingers flying across her laptop's keyboard with practiced precision. Lines of code appeared on her screen, some written in Braytech's proprietary language that she'd painstakingly reverse-engineered months earlier. "Maya!" Roberto's voice cut through the tension as he entered the operations floor, confusion written across his weathered face. "What are you doing here?" "You're supposed to be—" "Not now, Dad," Maya said, without looking up from her screen. "Your company has a virus nested in its load balancer. I'm cleaning it." Roberto blinked, recognizing the focused intensity he'd seen in his daughter since she was 10 years old. The same look she'd had when she rewired their apartment's electrical system with nothing but a screwdriver and determination. More people gathered around Maya's workstation. Phones that had been used to call emergency cyber teams were now turned toward her, recording. Word was spreading through the building. The janitor's daughter claimed she could fix what $100 million security systems couldn't. In the glass war room, Ethan Bray was pacing like a caged animal. His executives threw out theories, panicked solutions, and blame, but nothing was working. Stock prices were plummeting by the minute, and federal investigators were already asking pointed questions about internal security protocols. "Sir," an assistant burst through the door, tablet in hand. "You need to see this." Ethan followed her out of the war room, expecting another piece of bad news. Instead, he found his operations floor transformed. The chaos had quieted to an intense focus, all centered around a girl with a battered laptop who was typing commands with surgical precision. "What is this?" Ethan demanded, his voice sharp with disbelief. Roberto stepped forward cautiously. "Mr. Bray, that's my daughter Maya. She says she can fix the system. Who authorized this?" Ethan's face was flushed with anger and confusion. What if she makes it worse? Maya didn't flinch. Her eyes remained locked on her screen, where green status indicators were slowly beginning to replace the red error messages. "If I were going to make it worse, it would have already collapsed. I'm already inside the recursive loop." "Give me 2 more minutes. Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. Maya finally looked up, meeting his gaze. With calm, steady eyes. "I'm someone your system never predicted, and I'm not done yet." She turned back to her screen as the first wave of system repairs began to cascade across the building's monitors. The impossible was happening, and everyone was watching. The transformation was subtle at first. A single monitor on the far wall flickered from red to amber, then another. Maya's fingers moved across her keyboard like a pianist performing a complex concerto, each keystroke deliberate and precise. "Firewall stabilizing on sectors 7 through 12, Marcus called out, his voice filled with disbelief. He'd been watching Maya's interface for 10 minutes, seeing code execute at speeds that should have been impossible. How is she accessing the core protocols without admin privileges? Maya didn't answer immediately, her attention focused on the cascade of data flowing across her screen. She built her own interface, a hybrid system that could communicate with Braytech's infrastructure in ways their own engineers had never imagined. Years of studying discarded code printouts and reverse engineering proprietary systems had led to this moment. "I'm not accessing your protocols," she said finally, her voice steady despite the crowd gathering around her. "I'm speaking directly to your system's base architecture, the layer underneath all your security restrictions." Dr. Patricia Vance, Braytech's chief architect, pushed through the crowd. She was a woman in her 50s with silver hair and a reputation for designing unhackable systems. She'd been fighting the virus for 30 minutes with no success, and now she was watching a teenager accomplish what her entire team couldn't. "That's impossible," Dr. Vance said, studying Maya's screen. "Our base architecture isn't accessible to standard interfaces. You'd need a quantum encrypted bridge protocol that can mimic your system's own recognition patterns." Maya finished. "I built one. It took me 3 months to get the frequency modulation right." Dr. Vance's face went pale. "You built a quantum bridge? That's theoretical technology. We've been trying to develop something similar for 2 years. Maya's lips curved into the faintest smile. Sometimes being on the outside gives you a different perspective. Across the operations floor, more monitors were coming back online. The recursive virus that had been strangling Braytech systems was being systematically dismantled, isolated, and purged. Maya had found its weakness, a reliance on the company's predictable recovery protocols. By creating an unpredictable response pattern, she'd starved the virus of the data it needed to replicate. System integrity at 67% and climbing, called out Jennifer Park, a senior developer who'd been documenting Maya's progress. I've never seen anything like this. She's not just fixing the damage, she's making the system stronger. Ethan Bray stood frozen, watching his company's salvation unfold through the actions of a girl he'd never noticed despite her presence in his building for years. The federal auditors, initially angry about the system failure, were now taking notes and filming Maya's recovery process. Mr. Bray, said Colonel James Morrison, the lead federal auditor, I've seen cyber defense systems worth hundreds of millions of dollars. What this young woman is doing shouldn't be possible with consumer-grade equipment. Maya's fingers paused over a keyboard. She could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on her, the pressure of expectations and disbelief. For years, she'd been invisible in this building, a shadow in the hallways while her father worked nights to support them. Now, every person in Braytech's headquarters was watching her every move. System integrity at 85%, Marcus announced, his voice filled with awe. All primary servers are back online. The virus has been completely isolated. Maya made one final adjustment to her code, then sat back in her chair. The operations floor fell silent as the last few monitors flickered from amber to green. Status bars showed 100% across all systems. The unthinkable had happened. Braytech's worst crisis had been resolved not by their elite cybersecurity team, but by a 19-year-old with a modified laptop and 7 years of patient observation. Spontaneous applause broke out across the floor. Engineers who'd never spoken to Maya clapped and cheered. Some were laughing with relief, others staring in stunned silence. A few even had tears in their eyes, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they'd witnessed. Maya closed her laptop and calmly placed it back in her warm backpack. She looked at Ethan Bray, who was still processing what had just happened. Your system is clean, she said simply, but you should patch the API layer vulnerability near port 3821. That's how the breach got in originally. Ethan took a step forward, his voice barely audible above the continuing applause. How did you learn to do this? Maya glanced at her father, who was watching from the edge of the crowd, with pride and amazement written across his face. Dad's been cleaning this building for 7 years. I grew up here, in a way. Your engineers throw away more knowledge in your trash bins than most people learn in 4 years of college. I read it all. She shouldered her backpack and walked toward Roberto. Come on, Dad. Your shift's over. As Maya headed for the exit, Ethan found his voice. Wait, he called out. Maya stopped but didn't turn around. What are you? He asked, his voice filled with wonder and confusion. Maya paused, considering her answer. I'm someone you never saw coming, she said quietly. And now you have to decide what you're going to do about it. With that, she walked out of Braytech's headquarters while half the building stood in awe, unsure whether they'd just witnessed a miracle or the beginning of something even bigger. The sun had barely set when Braytech's boardroom lights blazed to life again. This time, there were no alarms, no chaos, no shouting, just a heavy weight of bruised egos and uncomfortable truths. The mahogany table reflected the glow of wall-mounted monitors displaying the day's stock performance. Braytech had closed up 12% after news of the miracle recovery hit financial networks. Ethan Bray stood at the head of the table, his steel gray suit immaculate despite the day's turmoil. Behind him, security footage played on the main screen, Maya Rodriguez walking into the operations floor, typing commands with impossible confidence, and single-handedly saving the company from catastrophic failure. Tell me someone has answers, Ethan said, his voice dangerously quiet. A 19-year-old girl just accomplished what our entire cybersecurity division couldn't. I need to know who she really is. Linda Torres, Braytech's head of human resources, consulted her tablet with obvious discomfort. We ran a complete background check. Maya Rodriguez, age 19, lives in a one-bedroom apartment on Maple Street with her father Roberto. No college degree, no formal work history. She attended Tech Valley High but dropped out in her junior year. Her only documented achievement is 3 years in the robotics club. That's it. Ethan's jaw tightened. A high school dropout just saved $1 billion company from complete collapse, and that's all we know about her. Dr. Patricia Vance, still shaken from watching Maya's impossible technical feat, leaned forward. Ethan, you need to understand what she did today. That quantum bridge protocol she mentioned? My team has been working on similar technology for 2 years with unlimited funding. She built it in her bedroom with salvaged parts. Which brings us to the real question, said CFO Michael Reynolds, always the pragmatist. What do we do now? Word is already spreading through Silicon Valley. Every tech company in the region is going to try to recruit her. Google, Apple, Microsoft, they'll offer her anything. Ethan was quiet for a long moment, staring at the frozen image of Maya on the screen. She looked so ordinary, just a teenager in a hoodie with grease-stained hands. But in her eyes, he could see something that unnerved him. Absolute confidence, the kind that came from knowing you were the smartest person in the room. We bring her in, he said finally. Full-time position, whatever it takes. Sir, Linda interjected carefully. She doesn't even have a high school diploma. The board will ask questions about hiring. The board can ask all the questions they want. Ethan cut her off. Maya Rodriguez just prevented our company from becoming a footnote in tech history. I don't care if she learned everything from YouTube videos and garbage bins. Results matter, and her results speak for themselves. But when they tried to contact Maya, they hit their first obstacle. The phone number Roberto had provided went straight to voicemail. She wasn't at the apartment. She'd seemingly vanished, leaving behind only the memory of what she'd accomplished. It took 3 days for Maya to surface again. During those 3 days, Braytech stock continued to climb as tech blogs and business journals called a recovery, the most impressive display of cyber defense in modern corporate history. Federal auditors updated their reports to include a new category, unconventional security assets. When Maya finally answered the knock on her apartment door, she found not Ethan Bray, but Linda Torres standing in the hallway with a leather portfolio and an expression of barely concealed desperation. We need to talk, Linda said, in person, privately. Maya stepped aside and led her into the small apartment. Linda's eyes immediately went to the far wall, where Maya's custom workstation dominated the living room. 3 monitors displayed. Scrolling code, servers hummed quietly in a makeshift rack, and circuit boards covered every available surface. It looked like mission control for a space program, compressed into a low-income apartment. You built all this yourself? Linda asked, genuinely amazed. Maya nodded. With what I could afford and what I could salvage. Linda placed her portfolio on the small dining table and opened it to reveal a contract 7 pages long. At the top, in bold letters, Braytech Special Projects Division Lead Developer Position. Ethan wants you to join us, Linda said. Full control over your own division, unlimited budget, your choice of team members. You name your terms. Maya picked up the contract and read through it carefully. The salary was more money than she and her father had ever seen. The benefits package included housing allowance, education funding, and stock options that could make her wealthy within a few years. Why? She asked, looking up from the papers. Because you saw something none of our engineers could see. Because you did what hundreds of experts couldn't do. And because Braytech doesn't want to risk losing you to someone else. Maya set down the contract and leaned back in her chair. My terms? Whatever you want. I don't want a team that looks good on paper, Maya said, her voice steady and thoughtful. "I want problem solvers. I want minds that have been underestimated, people who never got a fair shot. I want the kind of people who see solutions where others see impossibilities." Linda hesitated. Maya was essentially asking to build a team of outsiders, people who might not fit Braytech's traditional corporate culture. But after what they'd witnessed, she wasn't in a position to negotiate. "Deal," Linda said. Maya looked down at the contract one more time. She thought about her father, working night shifts for 7 years to keep them afloat. She thought about all the discarded code she'd studied, all the late nights teaching herself advanced programming, all the years of being invisible and ignored. Without a word, she picked up a pen and signed her name at the bottom of the contract. Across Silicon Valley, the technology industry was about to change forever. But this time, the change wouldn't come from a prestigious university or a billion-dollar startup. It would come from a janitor's daughter who'd learned to see what others couldn't and finally had the power to do something about it. 3 weeks later, Maya stepped off the elevator onto the newly renovated 15th floor of Braytech Tower. The transformation was breathtaking. Gone were the sterile corporate cubicles and fluorescent lighting. In their place stood an open concept workspace that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. Glass walls etched with live data streams, interactive holographic displays floating in midair, and workstations that seemed to pulse with their own energy. Her nameplate was simple: Maya Rodriguez, Director, Special Projects Division. But what she built in those few weeks was anything but simple. Maya walked through her domain with quiet satisfaction. 16 carefully chosen engineers worked throughout the space, each handpicked by Maya herself. None of them had Ivy League degrees. None came from prestigious tech companies. But every single one had something more valuable. They'd been overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed by the traditional tech industry. There was Jake Martinez, a former auto mechanic who taught himself machine learning while working on cars. His unconventional background gave him insights into system optimization that traditional programmers missed. Lisa Washington had been a high school math teacher for 10 years before Maya discovered her brilliant algorithms hidden in educational forums. David Chun was a community college dropout who'd spent years coding indie video games in his garage, developing creative solutions to complex problems with minimal resources. Each member of Maya's team had a story of being passed over, ignored, or told they weren't good enough. Now they worked on projects that could reshape the entire technology landscape. Status report on Project Spectre? Maya asked as she approached the central workstation where her team was gathered. Jake looked up from his monitor, excitement clear in his voice. "The AI defense system is exceeding all projections. We've successfully tested it against 12 different attack scenarios, including some we designed ourselves. It's not just blocking threats, it's learning from them." Maya nodded, studying the data flowing across the displays. Project Spectre was her masterpiece, an artificial intelligence system that could anticipate and counter cyber attacks before they fully materialized. Traditional security systems waited for threats to manifest, then reacted. Spectre identified patterns in the preparation phase, stopping attacks that hadn't technically started yet. What about the mirror protocol? Lisa Washington pulled up a new set of screens. That's where it gets interesting. We've designed Spectre to not just block attacks, but to trace them back to their source in real time. When someone tries to breach our systems, we can identify their location, their methods, and their entire infrastructure within minutes. Maya smiled. She'd learned that the best defense was often a good offense. If companies like Braytech could identify and expose cybercriminals faster than law enforcement, they could protect not just themselves, but the entire digital ecosystem. But not everyone in Braytech Tower was pleased with Maya's rapid rise. On the executive floors, whispers of resentment grew louder each day. Some board members questioned why millions of dollars were being invested in unproven talent. Others worried that Maya's team of outsiders didn't understand corporate culture or hierarchy. The tension came to a head during a board meeting Maya wasn't invited to attend. "I'm concerned about the precedent we're setting," said board member Richard Hampton, a man who'd built his career on traditional hiring practices and corporate credentials. "We're essentially telling the entire industry that formal education and experience don't matter. What happens when every company tries to find their own diamond in the rough?" Ethan Bray sat at the head of the table, listening to the concerns with growing irritation. "Richard, Maya Rodriguez single-handedly saved this company from bankruptcy. Her team has developed technology that's already generated 17 patent applications and attracted interest from the Department of Defense. I don't care if she learned programming from fortune cookies, results matter. But what about stability, corporate culture? These people don't understand how to work within established systems. Maybe that's exactly why they're so effective." Ethan replied, "They're not constrained by the limitations we've imposed on ourselves." The debate continued for another hour, but Ethan had made his decision. Maya's division would continue with full support and unlimited resources. The board members who disagreed would have to adapt or find new positions. Meanwhile, Maya was unaware of the political battles being fought over her success. She was focused on a new challenge that had emerged from an unexpected source. There, competitors were taking notice. "Maya, you need to see this," David called out from his workstation. "We've got incoming." Maya hurried over to find David's screens displaying network traffic patterns that made her blood run cold. A coordinated cyber attack was being launched at Inspiration's infrastructure, but this wasn't random malware or standard hacking attempts. This was sophisticated, targeted, and designed specifically to counter their new security measures. "Someone's been studying our systems," Maya said, her mind racing as she analyzed the attack vectors. "They know exactly how our defenses work." "Corporate espionage?" Lisa asked. "Worse," Maya replied, her fingers flying across her keyboard as she activated Project Spectre. "This is personal." As alarms began to sound throughout Braytech Tower, Maya realized that her success had painted a target on her back. Someone wanted to prove that the janitor's daughter was nothing special, that her miracle recovery had been luck, not skill. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The attack came at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, during the peak of Braytech's daily operations. Maya was reviewing code with her team when every monitor in the Special Projects Division simultaneously flashed red. But this time, instead of panic, there was only focused intensity. "Spectres activated," Jake announced, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were facing. "We've got coordinated attacks on 17 different entry points. This isn't random, someone's mapped our entire network architecture." Maya moved to the central command station, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface she'd designed. Unlike the chaos 3 weeks ago, her team moved with practiced precision. They'd trained for this moment, knowing that success would inevitably attract retaliation. Pattern analysis shows the attacks are being routed through multiple proxy servers, Lisa reported, her screens displaying a complex web of digital pathways. But there's something else. The code signatures are familiar. This isn't foreign actors or criminal hackers. Maya's eyes narrowed as she studied the data. "Show me the source architecture." The display shifted to reveal the underlying structure of the attacking code. Maya's blood chilled as she recognized the patterns. The algorithms were sophisticated, well-funded, and bore the hallmarks of a major technology corporation. "Innovating," she whispered. David looked up from his workstation. "The defense contractor that lost the federal bid to us last month?" Maya nodded grimly. Innovating had been the front-runner for the government contract until Braytech's dramatic recovery and subsequent innovations had shifted the competitive landscape. Now, they were fighting back through digital warfare, attempting to cripple Braytech's systems and discredit Maya's reputation. They're using a distributed AI attack system, Maya said, her mind racing through defensive strategies. It's designed to learn from our countermeasures and adapt in real time. Traditional security protocols won't work. So what do we do? Jake asked. Maya's lips curved into a cold smile. We show them what happens when you attack someone who's been underestimated their entire life. Instead of simply blocking the attacks, Maya activated a protocol she'd been developing in secret Operation Mirror. Rather than defending against the incoming assault, Spectre would analyze the attack patterns, reverse engineer the source code, and send a modified version back to the attackers. You're going to hack them back? Lisa asked, her voice filled with admiration and concern. I'm going to expose them, Maya corrected. If Innovating wants to play dirty, they're going to learn what real cyber warfare looks like. Within minutes, Maya's counterattack was underway. Spectre had identified the true source of the assault, a server farm in Nevada owned by Innovating. But rather than simply blocking their attacks, Maya's system began infiltrating their networks, documenting evidence of corporate espionage and industrial sabotage. I'm mapping their entire operation, David reported, his voice filled with excitement. Every attack vector, every proxy server, every piece of malicious code, it's all being traced back to specific Innovating employees. Meanwhile, 3 floors below, Ethan Bray was in an emergency meeting with federal investigators who'd been monitoring Braytech systems as part of their ongoing security evaluation. Colonel Morrison had arrived within minutes of the attacks. Start. Mr. Bray, we're witnessing something unprecedented, the colonel said, studying the real-time data feeds. Your systems aren't just defending against this attack. They're conducting a full-scale digital forensics investigation while under fire. Ethan watched the displays with grim satisfaction. That's Maya's work. She doesn't just solve problems, she eliminates them permanently. Back in the Special Projects Division, Maya's team was watching in awe as Operation Mirror reached its climax. Not only had they successfully defended against Innovating's attack, but they'd also gathered enough evidence to expose the entire conspiracy. We've got everything, Jake announced. Email records, financial transactions, planning, documents, all proving that Innovating orchestrated this attack to damage our reputation and steal our proprietary technology. Maya made her final keystroke, and suddenly every screen in the building displayed the same message. Threat eliminated, source exposed, evidence forwarded to federal authorities. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, applause began to spread through Braytech Tower. Employees who'd watched the attack unfold in real time had witnessed something remarkable. Not just a successful defense, but a masterclass in digital justice. Within hours, federal agents were raiding Innovating's facilities while financial markets reacted to the scandal. Braytech stock soared as investors realized they weren't just buying shares in a tech company. They were investing in the future of cybersecurity. Maya stood in her division, watching the celebration around her with quiet satisfaction. Her team of overlooked outsiders had just defeated one of Silicon Valley's most established corporations using nothing but intelligence, creativity, and a kind of determination that came from having something to prove. Maya, Ethan's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him standing at the entrance to her division, his usually stern expression soft with something that looked like pride. That was extraordinary, he said simply. You didn't just defend the company, you changed the rules of the game. Maya nodded, her mind already moving to the next challenge. This is just the beginning, Mr. Bray. There are a lot of people out there who've been told they're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy of a chance. It's time to prove them all wrong. As news of the incident spread across the tech industry, one thing became clear. The janitor's daughter had just served notice that the old ways of doing business were over. Intelligence trumped credentials. Results mattered more than resumes. And underestimating someone could be the most expensive mistake a company ever made. The federal courthouse in downtown San Francisco buzzed with activity as news crews and technology reporters gathered for what promised to be the trial of the decade. Innovating executives, led by CEO Brandon Maxwell, faced charges of corporate espionage, cyber terrorism, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The evidence Maya had gathered during their failed attack painted a picture of systematic corruption that reached the highest levels of the company. Maya sat in the witness section, wearing a simple black blazer that her father had helped her pick out. At 20, she looked impossibly young to be at the center of such a momentous case, but her calm demeanor and sharp eyes commanded respect from everyone in the courtroom. "The prosecution calls Maya Rodriguez to the stand," announced Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Walsh. As Maya walked to the witness box, she could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes upon her. In the gallery sat Roberto, beaming with pride despite his obvious nervousness. Ethan Bray and the Braytech board members filled an entire row, their presence a testament to how much her success had transformed the company. "Ms. Rodriguez," the prosecutor began, "can you please explain to the jury what happened on the afternoon of March 15th when Innovating launched their cyber attack against Braytech?" Maya spoke clearly and confidently, describing the technical details of the attack in language that non-experts could understand. She explained how she'd recognized the attack patterns, implemented her countermeasures, and ultimately gathered the evidence that exposed Innovating's conspiracy. "And what was your background before joining Braytech?" the prosecutor asked. "I was a high school dropout living in a one-bedroom apartment with my father," Maya replied without shame. "I learned programming by studying discarded code printouts and experimenting with salvaged computer parts." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Even now, months after her initial breakthrough, people still found it difficult to believe that such expertise could emerge from such humble beginnings. During cross-examination, Innovating's defense attorney tried to discredit Maya's testimony by focusing on her lack of formal credentials. "Ms. Rodriguez, you have no college degree, no professional certifications, no traditional qualifications whatsoever. How can this jury trust your interpretation of complex technical evidence?" Maya looked directly at the attorney, her voice steady and clear, because results speak louder than credentials. "When Braytech's system crashed, your client's $1 million security teams couldn't fix it. When Innovating attacked us, their army of PhD engineers couldn't break through our defenses. I may not have a diploma on my wall, but I have something more valuable. I have the ability to see solutions where others see only problems." The attorney pressed harder. "But surely you must admit that your unconventional methods could be dangerous. That proper training and oversight are necessary in such critical systems." Maya's eyes flashed with controlled anger. "You want to talk about dangerous? Your client launched an illegal cyber attack designed to cripple a company's infrastructure. During a federal audit, they attempted to steal proprietary technology and destroy the livelihoods of hundreds of employees. I stopped them. If that's dangerous, then maybe the industry needs more danger and less complacency." The courtroom erupted in applause before the judge could restore order. When Maya stepped down from the witness stand, she could see the defeat in the defense team's eyes. They tried to make her background a weakness, but she turned it into her greatest strength. Later that afternoon, the prosecution presented their evidence, terabytes of data that Maya's system had gathered during Innovating's attack. Email chains revealed months of planning, Financial records showed payment to black market hackers, and code analysis proved beyond doubt that the assault had been orchestrated by Innovate's own cyber warfare division. Brandon Maxwell, Innovate's CEO, took the stand in his own defense. A silver-haired man in an expensive suit, he represented everything that Maya had fought against: privilege, entitlement, and the belief that success should be reserved for a chosen few. "Mr. Maxwell," the prosecutor asked, "why did your company target Braytech with this cyber attack?" Maxwell's lawyer had clearly coached him to show remorse, but his arrogance bled through. "We were concerned about the precedent being set. Braytech was promoting unqualified individuals to positions of extreme responsibility. We felt it was our duty to expose the inherent dangers of such practices." "So you committed multiple felonies because you disagreed with a competitor's hiring decisions?" We believed we were protecting the industry standards." Maya watched from the gallery as Maxwell tried to justify his actions. She recognized the mindset, the same attitude that had kept her invisible for years, the belief that some people were inherently more deserving than others. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When they returned, their verdict was unanimous: guilty on all counts. Maxwell and 6 other Innovatech executives would face federal prison sentences, and the company would pay damages that would effectively end their operation. As the courtroom cleared, Ethan Bray approached Maya with an expression she'd never seen before, something that looked almost like awe. "You know what the most remarkable part of all this is?" he said quietly. "What's that?" "6 months ago, you were invisible. No one knew your name. No one respected your abilities. No one believed you had anything valuable to offer. Now you've single-handedly changed how the entire industry thinks about talent and potential." Maya looked around the courthouse, where reporters were still conducting interviews and legal analysts were discussing the broader implications of the case. "It's not just about me," she said. "There are thousands of people out there with incredible abilities who've been overlooked because they don't fit someone else's definition of qualified. This case sends a message that intelligence and determination matter more than pedigree." As they walked out of the courthouse together, Ethan had one more question. "What's next for you, Maya? You could start your own company, name your price. With any tech giant in the world, what do you want to do?" Maya smiled, thinking of her father and the countless nights he'd worked to support her dreams. She thought of her team of misfits and outcasts who'd proven their worth beyond doubt. She thought of all the young people who were watching this story unfold, wondering if they too might have hidden potential waiting to be discovered. "I want to change everything," she said simply, "and I'm just getting started." 6 months later, Maya stood before a packed auditorium at Stanford University, delivering the keynote address for the inaugural conference on inclusive innovation. The same institution that had never considered her worthy of admission now hung on her every word. "3 years ago," Maya began, her voice carrying clearly through the packed auditorium, "I was a high school dropout living in a 1-bedroom apartment, learning programming from garbage bins and salvaged computer parts. Today, Braytech's market value has increased by $4 billion, largely due to innovations developed by a team of people the traditional tech industry had written off as unqualified." The audience, composed of venture capitalists, Fortune 500 executives, government officials, and academics, listened in rapt attention. Maya's story had become legend in Silicon Valley, but its implications were still being felt across every industry. "The question isn't whether unconventional talent exists," Maya continued. "The question is whether you're brave enough to recognize it when it doesn't come with the credentials you expect." In the front row, Roberto Rodriguez sat beaming with pride. Beside him, Ethan Bray nodded approvingly. The transformation of Braytech had been remarkable. Stock prices had soared, government contracts had multiplied, and Maya's Special Projects division had become the most sought-after assignment in the company. But the real change had happened beyond Braytech's walls. Maya's success had triggered an industry-wide reevaluation of hiring practices. Companies across Silicon Valley were actively recruiting from community colleges, trade schools, and non-traditional backgrounds. The Maya Rodriguez effect, as business journals had dubbed it, was reshaping how the tech industry defined talent. "Let me tell you about my team," Maya said, clicking to a slide showing the faces of her diverse group of engineers. Jake Martinez learned machine learning while working as an auto mechanic. Lisa Washington developed revolutionary algorithms while teaching high school math. David Chun created breakthrough gaming engines in his parents' garage. None of them would have been hired by a traditional tech company 5 years ago. Today, they hold patents that are reshaping the future of cybersecurity. The presentation continued for another 20 minutes, with Maya detailing specific innovations and success stories. But the real impact came during the question and answer session that followed. Ms. Rodriguez asked a venture capitalist from the audience, "How do we identify these hidden talents? What should we be looking for?" Maya's answer was simple but profound. Stop looking at where someone went to school and start looking at what they've built. Stop asking about their previous job titles and start asking about the problems they've solved. Intelligence and creativity don't come with certificates, they come with curiosity and determination. After the conference, Maya returned to Braytech Tower for a special announcement. The entire company had gathered in the main atrium, from executive leadership to janitorial staff. Ethan Bray took the podium first. 2 years ago, this company nearly collapsed because we become too comfortable, too predictable, too confident in our own established methods, he began. Today, we're announcing the Maya Rodriguez Foundation for Unconventional Innovation, a $100 million initiative to identify and nurture talent in overlooked communities across the country. The applause was thunderous, but Maya knew the real work was just beginning. The foundation would establish coding boot camps in low-income neighborhoods, provide scholarships for non-traditional students, and create internship programs that valued potential over pedigree. As the crowd dispersed, Maya found herself standing alone in the lobby, where she'd spent countless afternoons waiting for her father to finish his shift. The same security guard who'd once asked her to move along now nodded respectfully as he passed. "Quite a journey," said a familiar voice behind her. Maya turned to find Dr. Patricia Vance, the chief architect who'd first witnessed her impossible technical breakthrough. The older woman's expression was thoughtful, almost philosophical. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if that system hadn't crashed that day?" Dr. Vance asked. "If you'd never had the opportunity to show what you could do?" Maya considered the question seriously. "I think about it sometimes. But I've realized that opportunities don't create talent, they just reveal it. If it hadn't been that day, it would have been another. The truth has a way of coming out eventually." "And what's the truth?" Maya smiled, looking up at the Braytech logo emblazoned on the lobby wall. "That intelligence exists everywhere, in every community, in every background. We just have to be brave enough to look for it in places we've never looked before." As Maya headed home that evening, she passed by Tech Valley High School, the same school she dropped out of 3 years earlier. A group of students was gathered around the robotics lab, working on projects with the kind of intense focus she recognized from her own teenage years. She pulled out her phone and made a note to contact the school's principal. The Maya Rodriguez Foundation would fund their first satellite program there, giving students access to advanced equipment and mentorship from industry professionals who understood that potential wasn't limited by zip codes or family income. The janitor's daughter had become an industry icon, but her greatest achievement wasn't the patents she'd filed or the millions she'd earned. It was the knowledge that somewhere, in a classroom or garage or bedroom, The next Maya Rodriguez was building something extraordinary, and now the world was finally ready to notice. Roberto was waiting for her when she arrived at their new apartment, a spacious place in a better neighborhood, but modest by Silicon Valley standards. Maya had never forgotten where she came from. Maya had never forgotten where she came from. "How was the conference, Mia?" he asked, using the nickname that reminded her she was still his little girl, regardless of her professional success. "Good, Dad. Really good. We're going to help a lot of people get the chances they deserve." Roberto smiled, the same proud expression he'd worn the day he watched her save Braytech from collapse. "Your mother would be so proud," he said softly. Maya hugged her father tightly, thinking about the woman who died when she was 12, the one who'd always told her that being different wasn't a disadvantage. It was a superpower waiting to be discovered. Outside their window, the lights of Silicon Valley stretched endlessly into the night. Somewhere in those lights were future innovators who didn't know their potential yet. Young people who'd been told they weren't smart enough, weren't qualified enough, weren't worthy enough to dream big. Maya Rodriguez, former high school dropout, daughter of a janitor, invisible girl who'd changed the world, went to sleep knowing that tomorrow she'd help ensure they'd never be invisible again. The end of her story was really just the beginning of countless others, and that was exactly how she wanted it. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.